Memory Lane just finished up an auction that had a lot of high-end vintage baseball and non-sports cards. Um, I want to take a look at some of the top sales and throw you guys some honorable mentions. And some of these honorable mentions are $10,000 plus cards, some grails on the non-sports side of things. So that just tells you how good of an auction this was. But before we do that, I want to go over a little bit of the criteria for this video. Buyer's premium is going to be 20%. It's included in all the prices that are shown. I did not calculate taxes and shipping since they're not included in the prices shown. And I can't 100% confirm if a buyer has paid for a card. The assumption is everything at auction house has bids and the buyers will pay for it, but we all know things do fall through the cracks. And one other thing before we take a look at this top 25 list, I've partnered with this on this video with OnMantel. They are a social media site for collectibles. They actually partnered with a bunch of videos with us this month. So I want you guys to take a look at OnMantel. I'm pretty active on there, posting 3 times or more a week. Now, you can see over here, it's a kind of like a social media feed like Twitter, but you also have elements of Instagram. So right over here is a card that I recently posted on there, which is my 1887 Lone Jack cigarettes Bartholdi, one of my favorite cards in my collection. The guy helped design the Statue of Liberty, and I just think it's a really, really iconic card. So imagine having like a mixture of Twitter and Instagram for collectors content. The best part, no political debates unless you really collect president's parts and you want to discuss politics of the specific presidents. I guess that's a little non-sports side of things. But I've linked down below in the description as well as a pinned comment. Look, it's free to sign up and they are supporting the channel. So if you guys find some value in these auction recap videos, they take quite a lot of time to produce between grabbing all images, doing a little bit of research and things like that. So check out OnMantel. Thank you again to OnMantel for sponsoring this video. And yeah, let's start off with number 25, which is a 1915 Cracker Jack Joe Jackson. These are the second year Cracker Jacks. You will often find them in much nicer shape than the first year. I believe the second year was just issued as sets, whereas the first year was issued with the candy itself. I looked up why this got authentic. The auction house actually talked about it. They said it was because of men's size. I mean, this thing looks really, really sharp, and this sold for slightly under $30,000. Again, very high-end auction when $30,000 is essentially the barrier for the top 25. At number 24, we have a Cap Anson 1888 Goodwin Champs. One of the best looking cards in baseball. There's 4 SGC 7s on the pop report. There's one 7.5, and again, sold slightly under $30,000. Goodwin Champs set also has non-sports, has some boxers. It's a really, really great multi-sport release. 1916 M101 Jim Thorpe. Jim Thorpe only has a handful of baseball cards out there. This one sold for $29,724 in the M101 set. You might know for the Babe Ruth rookie card. Tito 6 Drum. Just something you don't see all the time. When you get into the scarcer Tito 6 backs, some dealers literally just display the back at a showcase and don't even care about the front. But Tris Speaker is a phenomenal baseball player, often overlooked. I know his prices have climbed over the last few years, but really, really great player. I found the back rankings from Tito 6 resource. I use it a lot in these videos, and you'll see some other rare Tito 6 cards today. So if you disagree with the back rankings, that's Tito 6 resource. Obviously, I'm open mind to where I get my research from, but regardless, they say the drum at 350, which is his 350 subjects you can see on the back over here, is the 5th hardest, and that's why this one in a 1 sold for $30,000. 1954 Hank Aaron. There's 229 graded 8s and 9s and 10s across the pop report. There's 397 PSA 7s, but still this card essentially sold for $31,000. But this is a really, really good looking copy, at least in my opinion. 1911 Hannes Wagner. You can often find these M116s in pretty high grade. There's a few different back color combinations. I should say background, not specifically the back. And we'll look at a Ty Cobb a little bit later in this list, but this Hannes Wagner sold for close to $33,000. We're in our top 20 now, by the way. On 1911 Baltimore Newsboy. I wonder if this is the one I've seen at a show before. There was a dealer at the Dallas Card Show that had a Baltimore Newsboy at one point. I want to say it was a Cobb or Wagner. Both of those are featured in this video, by the way. And there's very few of these out there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the set when we jump into Wagner. But this 1.5 Cobb is sold for $34,407. The Wagner that sold in this auction, I believe it's in the top 10, and it was a SGC 3. Another Ty Cobb, a 1913 Sporting News M101 3. This is a postcard with an ad back. The auction house said it's the only known example with that ad back, and it sold for $36,196. A 1908 Rose Company Cy Young. This one features no team. I assume that there's other variations out there that do feature a team. I remember, if I remember correctly, Cy Young was on a few different teams around this 1909 era, so I don't know if it got implemented in this postcard or not. And with the no team variant, it's 1 of 2 graded. This sold for $37,000. Here's another M116. This is a blue background. If we go back a little bit earlier, right, you can see the pastel. Cobb is also featured in this background, but the blue is a little bit rarer from research, and this one sold for $39,352. All right, in our 15th spot, a 1952 Burke Ross. There's 7 PSA 9s out there with no 10s. This is much tougher to find than the 52 tops, but if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think the 52 tops has a better design. I'm not a huge fan of some of the Burke Ross cards. I don't love the design, although there are subjects on the Burke Rosses that just aren't in a lot of sets, so that's why I have a few in my collection. But regardless, I don't have any 9s, so we'll say that. These are perforated too. You'll often find 2 cards together, and sometimes they are slabbed like that. Other times they're just slabbed solo. This one sold for $39,907. 1921 Caramel E121 Babe Ruth. And this has the same image as there's another variant of this card that says George Ruth instead of Babe Ruth, and it says LF instead of right field. And the George Ruth one is really expensive. This one is still quite expensive, $39,907 for a 3.5. Another Babe Ruth 1933 Gaudy. This one sold for $45,000. If I'm being honest with you guys, I would take the 1921 all day long over the Gaudy, but Gaudy's a classic set, and I understand the appeal behind it. 1909, 1911 T206 Old Mill Cobb. The Cobb green front tends to go for the most. Obviously, there's some multipliers depending on the back, but just in a standard back, the green is pretty popular, and there's a lot less of them out there. Now, T206 Resource says Old Mill is just slightly rarer than Polar Bear, and this 3 sold for $47,000, which is, it seems pretty crazy, but I don't think there's a lot of Old Mill green Cobbs, and that's the reason why it sold for this price point. We're on number 11 now, 1921 Exhibits at Babe Ruth. There's only one of these that are rated higher, and this one sold for $50,932. Now, before we jump into our top 10, I wanted to show you guys some of the honorable mentions because I have a lot of fun taking a look at the honorable mentions. Often you see some cards that aren't represented with the top sales, but they have some interesting stories. So let's start off with this one over here, this 1906 postcard with Moonlight Graham. Now, Moonlight Graham was one of the baseball players essentially featured in the Field of Dreams movie. And this is his only card, apparently, to the listing. Although he could have some other postcards that just haven't been discovered yet. Regardless, this one sold for $4,555 in a 1. This is actually a really awesome piece. Up next is a 1933 Sports Kings Bobby Jones in a 5. Why I like highlighting this is it's so funny. This card is a lot more expensive than the Bobby Jones rookie. The Bobby Jones rookie card is from 1926. It's actually out of the United Kingdom, and you can find a 5 probably around, like, I don't know, at the top of my head, anywhere from like $600 to $800. I might be a little bit off, but that's just me spitballing right now. Regardless, there's such a premium for the Sports King set and also for American cards. Although when you look at other parts of the hobby, they absolutely love the rookie card. I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. Regardless, I think this card is probably properly priced, but the rookie just doesn't have as much desire for some reason. All right, so up next is this 1978 sports deck lot. There's 120 sealed with 3 PSA 10s of the mantle, and this sold for 6,216. I don't even know the strategy at this point. Are you just gonna sell them all sealed? I mean, you would have to get over $50 a deck and then sell these tens, which I should have done some research, but I don't even know what these go for. Um, I don't know. It seems like a very strong price. I've never owned any of these cards. I just viewed them as not super desirable, but I could be wrong. We have a postcard of Cobb and Wagner, 2 of a kind, 1909 copyright. This is just an awesome piece over here with the tiger and the pirate. I mean, it's under $10,000, and some of the solo cards you've seen so far of Cobb and Wagner have been over 30, and there's a lot of them in there. I like this buy a lot at this price point. I'm not even going to try pronouncing this guy's last name. I apologize. He had a 3-year career with the Celtics. It's tough to find these in high grade, and especially centered for a 1957 Topps football card. This sold for $9,116. One of the first basketball sets out there. Hall of Famer, 5-time champion, considered one of the greatest forwards of the 1950s, also sold for $9,000. A 1933 Hornsby. He has 2 Gaudy cards, I believe. This one was signed, a pretty good signature overall. I think if you're going to grade this card, it'd probably get a 1.5, unless that's like a pinhole here. I can't tell what that is, or if it's like an ink stain. Regardless, this one is his more desirable card, and this sold for $11,395. A Joe Tinker Ooze It Back. I think that's how I pronounce it. I don't see these. These are very tough. It's again T206 Resort 6, hardest back to find. $15,000 on this, and it's a 7. Wow, this is awesome. A 1949 Bowman full set, number 14 set on the registry, 5.93 GPA, sold for about $16,000. 1958 Roger Maris rookie. There's 36 PSA 9s, no 10s. From research, this was the cheapest sale since 2021. Most of these sell between 22 and 27K, and this one sold for $18,830. 1961 Snyder in a 10. He was the 3rd best outfielder in New York and when he played, and he's a Hall of Famer, which shows you he was behind Mantle and Mays. It's just tough. There's 5 PSA 10s, and oddly enough, the last 10 sold for $1,680 in 2019, and now it's sold for $19,540. Wow, that's a big increase over there. Buck Ewing and 173. These were redemptions to get the cabinets. So you can apparently have different backings also of color, and you can choose your player. And this one sold for $20,000. Pee Wee Reese. This is one of the classic 1950s action cards, and the most popular Reese card out there, in my opinion. Hannes Wagner Cotton Cigarettes, one of his very few tobacco cards out there. $26,316 for this in a 2. 1952 Bowman Large Football 6.59 GPA, number 10 set all time. I believe as the Gifford rookie. This sold for almost $31,000. The lot description said solo cards of everything in here sold for $33,000. So someone got all those cards a little bit cheaper for that full number 10 set. All right, I'm going to jump into some non-sports cards, but I just want to give a quick shout out to my Facebook group. If you do want to join it on Facebook, check it out, Vintage Non-Sports Card Collectors. I know there's a lot of people here that just want to see non-sports content, so if you haven't joined that Facebook group yet, make sure to do so. We try to help each other learn and buy, sell, trade, and much more. First up here, Amelia Earhart and Charles Lindbergh dual auto. They both got famous for flying over the Atlantic Ocean. This is such an awesome card. I have a feeling I know who purchased this card, but I haven't seen it posted yet on Twitter. There's an autograph collector out there. His name is Big Poppy on Twitter, and he has one of the most insane historical figures and baseball autographs out there. Loves these type of cards. I wouldn't be surprised if he purchased it. And this sold for slightly under $5,000, which actually doesn't seem too bad. for both of these on a card being a one of one duel. I mean, this is a really awesome piece. Red Menace set number 3 on the registry, 8 GPA overall. This set is famous for its ghost card. You've probably seen it before. I know the 4 image didn't show it, but regardless, just search Red Menace Ghost and you'll know it. This sold for $8,000. 1962 Mars Attack. This 8.5 hasn't sold that often, but there was one other 8.5 sale this year which sold for 4,800. When I was looking at the listings after they ended, I felt like this was a little cheap. And yeah, 3674 on this beautiful 8.5 copy. 1976 Marvel, number 2 on the registry. They also mentioned this includes some of the checklists. 8274. The Doorknob has more hair than Clink. I think that's the full thing from Hogan's Heroes, which was a TV show, I believe. This is a pop one in a PSA 10. This shows you that there's a lot of registry collectors out there because the PSA 7 sold for $57. This sold for $7,161. Now we're going to cover a bunch of N76 cards. There was a lot that were sold in auction, but I just want to highlight maybe like 4 or 5 in a row because it is one of my favorite sets. And I will say I do have a video on the channel if you want to learn a little bit more about the N76s. I think they're one of the best designed out there. Anyways, Washington for $3,000. There's a 2.5 in the vintage non-sports auctions that also did about $3,000, but that 2.5 I think is nicer than this 4. N76 Andrew Jackson in A5. Famous General Trail of Tears. This sold for $1,000. N76 Lincoln. This was a crazy sale. I'm thinking this is the highest N76 sale of all time. $8,000 for this 6. N76 Mark Twain in A4. What's kind of cool is it has both names, Mark Twain and also Samuel Clemens, famous author, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, famous just American in general. And this sold for $1,171. And just to show you like how much these have appreciated over time, I think it was a year or 2 years ago, I picked this card up in a 6 for $600 or $700, somewhere around that price point. These things have exploded over the last year or so. So that out of the way, let's jump into our top 10. Up first, a Type 3 coupon cob. You don't see Type 1s or Type 3s that often. These are very scarce. Coupon cards are out of Louisiana. What I will say too is coupon cigarettes, they made actor cards because I have a Douglas Fairbanks rookie that has the coupon back. I paid up for that. I want to say it was like, it's either between like $50 and $100. I apologize for not remembering, but coupons you just don't see that often. Type 2 is the most common. I actually have a coupon cob, which I believe I'm selling. So if you want a Type 2, it's not going to be 50 grand. It's way cheaper than that. And mine's nowhere near the condition of this 8, which is just really awesome. And you can tell the difference too on the font of Cobb Detroit down there. Also, it's like a blue, I want to say. 1984 Star Jordan, 55,000. I think this is really nice for a 6. Although again, I don't have it in person, and there's that $1 million private sale recently in a 9. 1910 Clement Brothers. I believe that's how I pronounce it. Anyways, one of 3 examples out there. This was a bakery card issued out of Rochester, New York. Apparently they had Rochester baseball players also in this set with some of the major leaguers. This sold for $60,000. I didn't know it existed before this auction. I've never seen this image before. Another Ty Cobb, a T3 Turkey Red. This set features baseball players and boxers. I have the Jack Johnson. That's my only one from the set. I think if these were smaller, they would be even more expensive. The Cobb has 3 backs. There's the normal checklist back, no offer, and then Turkey Red back. Turkey Red back's amazing. But the no offer one is very scarce, and that's why that sold for $68,256. Ooze It Cobb. We saw the 7. This, not of Cobb, obviously, but the 7 that sold. And the 2.5 of the Cobb sold for almost $70,000. Baltimore Newsboy, Hannes Wagner. This was the one I talked a little about earlier. This is a Pop 2 between SGC and PSA. This has like an E94 design with a blue background, and it says Baltimore Newsboys on the back. $75,000 for that Wagner. 1952 Mandel 3.5, about $100,000. not much to really say about this card. 1951 Willie Mays autograph. This is the third highest graded auto. There's a 6 and also a 4.5 that sold for $100,000. Give me the Mays auto all day over that 52 mantle. 1925 exhibits Lou Gehrig rookie card. There's top 46 all across PSE and all grades. The 5, which 1.5 higher than this, right, sold for $1 million. 3.5, 117,000. I'll never own one of these. And lastly, the classic Bird Irving Johnson. There's 7 PSA 9s out there with autos. I don't know what all those autos grades are, just based off the pop report. Regardless, this one sold for $170,389. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. I want to thank our channel members, Jordan, Giles, Alaska Picker, and Aaron Herbert. And if you want to check out another auction recap, I have one on the screen